This is Clyde's Faction Takes, where I have taken it upon myself to attempt a playthrough of every legendary lord and faction start in Total War Warhammer 3. Why did I decide to do this? Honestly, it really boiled down to me wanting to fully experience Total War Warhammer 3 and the Total War franchise. There's plenty of legendary lords and factions that I haven't really explored yet, and I wanted to branch out and see if I could find a new favorite. And while I am a little late, a lot of late, I think I can still give some valuable input to those of you who are new to the series and franchise. What's going on, everybody? This is Clydian Fair, and first and foremost, I want to welcome you all to the channel. We're going to be pushing the rest of the fluff and stuff off to the side for now and dig straight into the content, since that's what you're here for. I am a very simple man, or rather, a very simple-minded man, and I couldn't figure out what the best first faction would be. So we did it as list order. So the top left is going to be the faction that we're going to be reviewing today. That being said, we're going to be reviewing the Beastmen legendary lords and starts, and whatever hopes and dreams I had being crushed before my eyes as I attempted these playthroughs. First of all, we're going to be starting off with Khazrak the One-Eye. He has some decent buffs, but ultimately I feel like he's very underwhelming. His faction effect is pretty solid, but it's nothing to fall in love with. As a unit himself, I found Khazrak to be very disappointing. I'm sure it was mostly due to my inexperience and underutilizing him and not using him properly. As a unit himself, I found Khazrak to be very underwhelming. I actually didn't enjoy using him in battle whatsoever, and I feel like every other Beastman Lord was better than him when it came to in combat battling. Now, I'm sure this is mostly due to my limited experience with him and I wasn't using him properly, but I wasn't going to take the time and attempt to redo his playthrough multiple times until I could actually win the game with him, because that would take forever, and I don't have that kind of time. His lord effects honestly feel like a generic brand version of the Tomb King's Queen Khalida. Now, that's probably because Khalida came out after he did, considering he's a Warhammer 1 unit and Khalida was Warhammer 2, and they wanted people to buy the Tomb King's DLC. Wonder how that worked out. But in Khazrak's defense, he does have Vanguard deployment on a couple of unit types, which doesn't mean anything for me because I rarely utilize that mechanic and I find it pointless. It's abysmal for me. Now, Khazrak's biggest fault isn't in his combat prowess, it isn't in his effects, it's in his Mortal Empire's start. As soon as you spawn in, you are constantly fighting tooth and nail for survival, and it's really easy to get zerged down considering you're surrounded by a lot of non-chaos and very orderly factions. All of these things considered, I wouldn't start with Khazrak. I would just start with someone else and then buy Khazrak with Dread if you really want to use him. Malagor the Dark Omen is the next one on this list because we're reading it in left to right order, and I am a simple-minded man, and he is a huge improvement over Khazrak the One-Eye, like just starting off here. His faction effects are not bad, considering he gives all lords and heroes 10% bonus movement range. Now, in combat is when Malagor really outshines Khazrak, considering he has wings and he's a wizard. He's able to fly over the enemy armies near him and rain hell upon them by the use of magic. This being said, his spell selection isn't the best. His best spell, in my opinion, is the Pendulum spell from the Lord of Shadows, which I do love, but he can't single-handedly win against a full stack in the likes of, let's say, Archaon could. All of that being considered, Malagor's Lord effects are really nothing to write home about. He is pretty good at chipping away at enemy forces, considering he makes it to where they cannot replenish any casualties in the local province. So whether he be sieging people down or chipping away at stacks or even defending a settlement, he can make it to where an enemy can't replenish at all, which is pretty useful. He also has the effect of reducing all local enemy armies leadership by 8, which is a lot when it comes down to like Skaven slaves or, you know, really terrible leadership units, but it's not a lot with, you know, your higher end units, so it doesn't affect that much late game. But in combination with the fact that he's able to make his harpies cause fear, it does add up, and he will be able to cause a lot of routes just because you're able to send your harpies forward and everyone's got less leadership. And yeah, I mean, it's not terrible. It's nice. It's kind of gimmicky, but it's nice. Malagor's starting position is in the middle of the desert, so he's surrounded by greenskin, the Exiles of Khorne, the Tomb Kings, some vampires. I mean, for the most part, he's got a pretty easy early game start. And on top of that, the enemies that he's around don't really have a ton of ranged units, so he's able to freely fly around enemy settlements or just enemy armies and toss spells at them. And I mean, overall, it's a pretty easy campaign start. Moving on from Malagor, we're going to be talking about Morgur the Shadowgave, who is my personal favorite legendary lord and start for the Beastmen faction. His faction bonuses give you increased casualty replenish rate, which is great because I run my hordes ragged. He decreases the cost of all horde upgrade buildings, and he also gives you an extra 4 chaos spawn unit capacity to your dread counter. All things considered, that's a lot better than either Malagor or Kazarak's faction bonuses, in my opinion. In combat, Morgur is a monster, a literal monster, because, well, he's an abomination for one, but he has a decay damage over time aura that does damage to anything around him, regardless if he's in melee. So he can be attacking a siege gate, and archers or swordsmen, spearmen, or whatever that are on top of the gate will be taking damage the entire time he's attacking the gate. He is also easily capable by himself. I have sent him into 5-6 units, and honestly, I've had him assault an entire side of a settlement by himself, and he will just sit there, considering he has regeneration and this kill aura, and he will sit inside a blob of 4 or 5 units, and they will just continuously die, because the more units that are in this decay aura, the more damage he does, because each unit takes 20 to 30 damage. So hey, look at that, lots of damage. His lord effects are solid, considering one of them is his kill aura that I was just talking about for combat. Another one is that he can only be wounded for up to 1 turn max. So if you do send him into a pile of enemies that are 5-6 too big or whatever, and he gets taken out, you only have to wait a turn, he'll be right back. It's not like a 5-turn wait or anything like that. That's similar to most other legendary lords. But the big lord bonus is that his entire army gains 20% spell resistance. So that's really helpful, considering he starts next to the Skaven rats, such as Ikit Claw. Morgur's starting location is on a little peninsula, so it makes it really easy for him to dig in his roots and begin raising everything in the name of chaos. Finally, we have Torox the Brass Bull, who is easily the strongest legendary lord and start in the Beastmen faction if you know how to properly utilize him. Spoiler alert, I don't know how to properly utilize him. His faction effects give a huge discount to Minotaur upgrades, which makes sense considering he's a massive Minotaur, as well as giving a rampage bonus, which essentially what rampage is it's a kill streak. The more battles you win with Torox, the stronger he gets. It's kind of cool. In combat, he's simply a beast. He's a massive Minotaur, which means he's large. So remember that whenever you charge him into a bunch of halberds or spearmen, but with regeneration that can easily be unlocked and some other things, he can just turn into a steamroller and he will wipe stacks by himself almost. Not to the extent of like a 25 vassal Kolek Sun Eater, but he will wipe stacks. Torox's Mortal Empire start has him surrounded by the Dark Elves, essentially. So So it's not necessarily an easy start, but he is a beast, pun intended, and can take the punishment. However, he does have a bigger learning curve, and it will take some time and getting used to in order to unlock his full potential. To sum all of this up, my personal favorite Beastman start would have to be Morker, but the arguably best start would be Torox. Kazrak, in my opinion, is arguably the worst Beastman legendary lord and start in the game, and Malagor, he isn't bad, but he just gets outshined by Torox and Morker. I'd like to thank you all for sticking around for this video, and if you enjoyed or appreciated this content and would like to see more faction review videos in the future, like the video and subscribe to the channel. You can't see these videos when they come out unless you subscribe. Don't forget to tell me in the comment section who your favorite Beastman faction leader is and why it is Kazrak and why I am totally wrong on all of my assumptions. Until next time, everyone, have a good one.